This is the Sales Babble Podcast, episode 440, the not-so-obvious sales mistake you should avoid.
Welcome to Sales Babble, the podcast that shares selling secrets for non-sellers. And now your host, Pat Helmers.
Hello, Sales Babblers. This is Pat Helmers, and I just returned from Podcast Movement, the largest conference in the world for podcasting. It was great to see old friends and to make new ones, and I walked away with a profound gratefulness to be in this industry and a sincere appreciation of you, the listeners, who make this podcast possible. I'm honored, so honored to have this opportunity to impart a bit of wit and wisdom on selling, because we're in an amazing profession and at an amazing time in history. And I'm humbled to have you in the audience, because I know that the Tao of Sales Babble is not for everyone, but here you are. And it's not obvious at first what we're trying to do, which leads well into this week's topic on how to be careful not to pounce on the obvious and avoid judging buyers too quickly, something we all want to do, myself included, but it's also dangerous and it can put your deals in peril. So, with no further ado, let's get to it. And now today's chapter, Seeing Beyond the Obvious. To understand, we label buyers by what we see. But the labels have limits, only describing the obvious, ignoring the subtle. When you see beyond the label, you can sense the true nature of the buyer and better share the benefits of your solution. Look beyond the obvious. Wake up to the true nature of the buyer. Speak to it. And now today's story. On the sales call, Chris quickly built rapport with the prospect and then asked about their business challenges. Lee explained how they have 3 big issues and then started explaining the quality difficulties over the last 6 months. Immediately, Chris jumped on the quality problems and started explaining how their company had a new program that can eliminate defects. Chris pressed Lee into a demonstration of the functionality, and at the end of the call, Chris tried to close the deal. But Lee was hesitant to take the next step, and the call ended with no action taken. Afterwards, Pat and Chris huddled to discuss the deal. "What could I have done to close Lee?" asked Chris. "Listen to the recording. Did I mess up the demo?" Pat listened, and before the demo started, Pat stopped the recording and said, "Lee mentioned that they had 3 issues, but you never got to all of them. Instead, you focused on the quality difficulties. Why? What you did was put Lee in a little box and labeled it quality. Who knows what the other pressing issues they have? Quality troubles may not be their top problem. Too many sellers pounce on the first problem they have. Slow down the sale, Chris. Take your time. Let the buyer place all their problems on the table and then decide which one to approach." On this podcast, we've had Jeffrey Gitmer as a guest. And Jeffrey says, questions are to sales as breath is to life. If you fail to ask them, you will die. If you ask them incorrectly, your death won't be immediate, but it's inevitable. I wish I had $1 for every time a salesperson asks me a question and immediately hops on my first answer and starts to pitch without fully understanding if I'm a truly qualified buyer. I have to stop them, sometimes raising my voice saying, "Stop, stop, stop. I'm not a qualified buyer. You don't need to pitch me. I'm not qualified." Hey, don't be that guy. Questions are to sales as breath is to life. Slow down. To download a copy of this week's Tao of Sales Babble chapter, you can find it in the show notes at www.salesbabble.com, as well as links to interviews with Jeffrey Gitmer, a wonderful guest. I highly recommend you check them out. And to make sure that you don't miss an episode, whatever app you're on right now, click the follow button. That's the one thing that's going to make sure that Sales Babble rises up for people who are looking for sales podcasts. It's not on reviews and it's not on likes. It's on people following. As well as, if you found value in this, mention this podcast to friends of yours. Get them to subscribe and to follow too. That would really help the podcast. That's it for this week, folks. Until next Tuesday, take care. And have a highly successful and a profitable selling day.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Babble podcast. Find us at www.salesbabble.com.
This is a production of Habanero Media.